Today, you're going to discover 7 subtle signs that your emotional maturity is far above average, even if no one has noticed it yet. Maybe not even you. Some people grow older, but never actually grow up, and others, quietly, develop a mind years ahead of their age. But how can you tell if you're one of them? Maturity hurts. Not the physical kind of pain, but the kind that hits when you realize not everyone will grow with you, that some friendships won't make it to your next chapter, that if you truly want to evolve, you'll have to let go of who you were, to become who you're meant to be. And the wildest part? The more mature you become, the less you feel the need to prove anything. You start observing more, reacting less, and without even trying, you begin to stand out in a world trapped in emotional immaturity. Have you already reached that point, or are you still on your way? You listen to understand, not to reply. Most people listen in a rush, as if they're just waiting for their turn to speak. They don't listen to understand. They listen to react, to argue, to prove a point, to sound right. But when you're emotionally mature, that changes. You start paying attention not just to the words, but to what's behind them. The tone, the pause, the expression on someone's face. Your brain becomes less reactive and more present. Something neuroscience links to the activation of the prefrontal cortex, the region tied to decision-making and empathy. And when you listen with intention, people feel it. They trust more. They open up more, because you're not trying to win an argument and you're trying to build a connection. That's one of the clearest signs of maturity, knowing that listening with presence is worth more than winning with words. 2. You don't rely on external validation. Have you ever caught yourself doing something just to please others, or waiting for someone to finally acknowledge your effort? If so, you're not alone. The human brain is wired to seek acceptance, for safety, for belonging. But the more emotionally mature you become, the less approval you need from others. Emotional maturity means acting with conviction, even when no one's clapping, because you understand your worth isn't defined by anyone else. It lives in your own conscience. Psychology shows that emotionally mature people have lower amygdala activity when receiving criticism. They don't collapse under others' opinions. They process, they reflect, and if needed, they adjust. But they never lose themselves in the process. They live with purpose, not for applause, and that's one of the greatest freedoms a person can ever experience. You see mistakes as data, not as failure. Immature people freeze when they make mistakes. They feel ashamed, blame themselves, and hide. But mature people, they investigate. They know that failure isn't the end, it's information. They understand that stumbling just shows them where to step more firmly next time. Neuroscience calls this a growth mindset. Every time you make a mistake and choose to learn instead of giving up, your brain adapts and forms new connections. That's neuroplasticity, your brain literally evolving. Instead of thinking, I failed, emotionally mature people ask, what can this teach me? They become better, not because they make fewer mistakes, but because they learn faster. And here's the hard truth. If you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to grow, because growth demands discomfort, failure, and humility. So the next time something goes wrong, don't judge yourself. Observe, take notes. Start again, with more data than before. That's emotional intelligence in action. You prioritize progress over perfection. Immature people wait for the perfect moment, the ideal setup, or the right mindset. Mature people start with what they have, even if they don't feel ready yet. They know perfection is a trap, because the human brain, especially the limbic system, hates risk, and demanding perfection before taking action is the perfect excuse to never do anything at all. Maturity is understanding that real progress is messy, full of edits, detours, and restarts. But every step, no matter how small, is one step further from stagnation. Mature people don't freeze because of what's missing. They move forward with what's available, and over time they realize those who take small steps daily go further than those waiting for the perfect road to appear. Progress isn't pretty, but it's what changes lives. 5. You value questions more than answers. While many people feel safe repeating what they've heard, mature people are constantly questioning easy certainties. They understand that asking questions takes more courage than giving answers, because asking means admitting you don't know, and that challenges your ego, your pride, even your identity. But that's exactly where maturity lives, in the discomfort of not knowing, in the humility of staying curious, even when the world pretends it already has everything figured out. Over time, emotionally mature people learn something even more powerful: how to ask the right questions, and that protects them from impulsive decisions, empty relationships, and projects with no purpose. Because if you don't ask, you'll keep falling into the same traps dressed as opportunities. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain tied to empathy and decision-making, lights up more in people who can sit with uncertainty and think before acting. That's not paralysis. That's depth. It's not about rushing to an answer, it's about uncovering what really matters. Because those who ask the right questions find the right direction. But if you're only chasing quick answers, you'll keep running in circles. You understand that empathy isn't about agreeing with everything. Empathy doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It's not about avoiding conflict or trying to please everyone. Mature people understand that empathy is about understanding, not necessarily agreeing. It's listening to someone with presence, even when you strongly disagree. It's recognizing another person's pain without having to feel it yourself. This kind of empathy is rare because it takes emotional intelligence. It means knowing where your boundaries end and theirs begin. It means being able to see what's yours to carry and what isn't. Science backs this up. Mirror neurons are what help us connect emotionally. But in emotionally mature people, those neurons aren't overactive. They're balanced. They can connect deeply without losing themselves in the process. Mature people know how to listen without absorbing everything. They know how to show respect without accepting abuse. They know how to care without carrying the weight of the world. They don't run from hard conversations. They face them with firm empathy, because maturity isn't passivity. It's knowing how to stand your ground without losing respect. You've learned to be patient with the process. Immature people want everything now, but maturity means understanding that some things take time, and that's okay. Have you noticed how emotionally stable people aren't constantly chasing shortcuts? They know that what's truly worth it takes consistency, that not all progress is visible at first, and that real results show up for those who stay the course. Neuroscience shows that people who develop this kind of patience tend to have greater density in the insular cortex, a brain area tied to emotional awareness, decision-making, and stress resilience. Maturity is having long-term vision. It's planting today without demanding the fruit tomorrow. It's repeating what works. Even when the world seems distracted by empty trends, mature people trust the process, not because everything is guaranteed, but because they know quitting too soon is what kills most dreams. If you've already learned to wait without losing yourself along the way, congratulations. That's rare, and it's a clear sign of real growth. If you recognized yourself in at least 3 of these signs, hit subscribe. Next week, I'm posting part 2, how to fast-track your emotional maturity in just 30 days. Maturity doesn't shout, it watches, and, more often than not, it hurts. It hurts to realize not everyone is coming with you, that some connections are meant to fade, that growth requires leaving your comfort zone to honor the person you're becoming. But it's also freeing, because once you mature, no one gets to define your worth. You stop chasing and start moving at your own pace. And in the end, it all comes down to one question. Will you keep trying to fit into a world that doesn't get you? Or will you become someone impossible to ignore? If you recognized yourself in at least 3 of these signs, hit subscribe. Next week, I'm posting part 2, how to fast-track your emotional maturity in just 30 days. Maturity doesn't shout, it watches. And more often than not, it hurts. It hurts to realize not everyone is coming with you, that some connections are meant to fade. That growth requires leaving your comfort zone to honor the person you're becoming. But it's also freeing, because once you mature, no one gets to define your worth. You stop chasing them and start moving at your own pace. And in the end, it all comes down to one question. Will you keep trying to fit into a world that doesn't get you? Or will you become someone impossible to ignore?